Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about transportation in China and how I feel about it as an ordinary person. Let's look at high-speed rails and subways first. Chinese people often take pride in their advanced high-speed rails and subways. It is believed that China's high-speed rails and subways are second to none in the world. On the internet, the propaganda department of the Chinese Communist Party goes into overdrive, praising the speed of China's high-speed rails and the fact that they are so smooth that they can even keep a coin standing. China's big infrastructure program has led to the construction of high-speed rails and subways all over the country, whether at a loss or not. In fact, ordinary people in China seldom have opportunities to take the high-speed rail and subway, especially at this time of economic recession. Why do ordinary people seldom take these means of transportation? I think there are several reasons. First, expensive. In all fairness, the Chinese government has lowered the price of this means of transportation. However, Chinese people in general have low spending power and generally seldom take the high-speed rail or subway unless they work in the city every day or live in the city and have a good job. Second, lack of motivation to ride. In an economically active country where all kinds of economic activities are prevalent and people's incomes increase, it is natural for them to increase the frequency of riding on means of transportation, such as looking for a job, making friends, attending various events, and traveling. But China's economy declined as soon as it rose. The passenger flow dropped dramatically just after the high-speed rails and subways were built. Migrant workers used to travel by these means of transportation from the interior of China to the coastal cities to work, but their willingness to go out to work will fade due to the economic downturn, and they are aging and their neighbor advantage is gradually declining. The new generation of migrant workers, the millennials, can't stand 996 work schedule, which means you have to work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 6 days a week, and they are choosing to lie flat at home. As a result, the willingness to take the high-speed rails or the subways has naturally declined. Then why are you seeing crowds at major tourist attractions and subways packed with people on China's self-media platforms again? I think there are several reasons. First, young people pile up to look for jobs. Once the Chinese New Year is over, many unemployed people will look for jobs at the same time and flock into the city together, causing the subways and high-speed rails to be very congested. Second, many people are unemployed at the present time. However, a lot of people, especially the post-70s, post-80s, and post-90s, are the beneficiaries of the previous period of China's economic rise. And the Chinese people generally like to save money, so they have money even if they are unemployed. And these people can buy a car for a fairly cheap price with the subsidy of the Chinese government. These people have nothing to do during the week, so they will travel to major attractions on holidays. These people are the cause of traffic accidents and the proliferation of cars, which I will mention later in the video. It is true that China's roads have made great achievements in recent years, but like the high-speed rails and the subways, this achievement has come too late. Take myself as an example. I live in the rural area of Chengdu, which is the most affluent area in Sichuan province. Although country roads and county roads have been in place for a long time and have been cemented for a long time, the cementing of paths in front of each house was only accomplished during the period from 2015 to 2019. During the time I was in college, the roads in rural China need to be explained here. For example, there is a county road near my village. So what is the county road? If you walk along this road, you can go from one county to another. The county road near my house is relatively old, and its width allows only 2 large trunks to pass. Then what is country roads? Country roads extend from a point on the county road. If you walk along a country road, you can go from one village to another. Generally, many families build their houses along the country road. From a point on country road, many paths are created created, and many families built their houses along the path. These families usually travel on paths to reach the country road. These paths were only cemented by the government during the period from 2015 to 2019. The quality of China's roads is poor, whether they are made of asphalt or cement, and these roads often get shabby within a few years. Why? Many people conclude that too many trunks are the cause, or that the construction has cut corners. In the past, when I was a kid, the local government would not rebuild the county road near my home even if it was potholed, but just ignored it. At that time, China's economy was taking off. Nowadays, the government is getting more and more diligent. And even if the road is not broken, it will rebuild it regularly. And it will also dig up the green belt and rebuild it from time to time. The government does not give any response or explanation to this. I think these operations are the way for the local government to dredge for money and increase GDP. Every year, the local government keeps on raising debts, and it will rebuild this road and that road, and even if the road is not broken, through bidding and tendering, collusion between the government and business, the money raised from debts will fall into the hands of the local government and the bidding companies. It looks like the GDP has been raised, but no employment opportunities have been created for ordinary people. And the local government and these companies are getting richer and richer. These companies will not recruit staffs from the outside, but will only recruit staffs through nepotism. Of course, cutting corners exists in the building process. By doing this, the government and the companies can dredge for more money. If the road breaks, they can rebuild it again. For example, there is a large highway around my house, and I once ascended a footbridge over this highway. This footbridge cut corners and already had tiles peeling off just after completion, and there were many large cracks and conjunctions of the footbridge. If you look down from the cracks, you can see the highway below. The strategy of the local government is to rebuild the roads in their jurisdictions every year, as if they have made a plan. Rebuilding this road this year and that road next year would never have existed when I was a kid. Rapidly rebuilding roads, and even when they are not broken, it is not difficult to imagine this will cause serious traffic congestion and accidents. And more people are buying cars lately. It can be said that traffic congestion and traffic accidents are not only the responsibility of the government, but also that of these people who have bought cars. Since the trade war between the United States and China began in 2018, the Chinese Communist Party has claimed that it wants to establish a unified domestic market, promote internal circulation, and make China a manufacturing powerhouse. To put it simply, it is self-production and self-marketing. The result is the proliferation of cars in China, causing traffic congestion, chaotic parking, and traffic accidents. The Chinese government subsidized car buyers like crazy, and with the real estate slump, many people turned to cars. As a result, basically everyone, whether in the city or in the countryside, has a car at home. However, neither the cities nor the countryside can afford too many cars. Since country roads are generally narrow and there are many houses along the roadside, people, non-motorized vehicles, and cars tend to pass on them, thus causing traffic congestion. In addition, traffic accidents can easily be caused because people driving cars too fast. In a city, whether it is in the old city or the new city, people park indiscriminately. They drive cars to turn right without allowing pedestrians to pass first. Also, they cause terrible traffic congestion. Here, I would like to talk about the phenomenon of indiscriminate parking of cars in the cities in particular. As we all know, China's per capita income is not high, and there are many people who rely on bicycles or electric bicycles to get around. However, due to the increase of cars, many people park their cars on the side of the road indiscriminately, which leads to traffic accidents. For example, When an electric bicycle passes by a car on the side of the road, the driver starts suddenly or opens the door of the car suddenly. Also, when a car makes a right turn, it does not allow non-motorized vehicles and pedestrians to pass first. The Chinese government and these car buyers need to be held accountable for the frequent traffic accidents in recent years. The Chinese government is subsidizing at all costs for the so-called Made in China, squeezing money out of these fools so that they can make huge profits as a way to fund research and development. And these car buyers, which I mentioned above, are mainly the post-70s, 80s, and 90s who are the beneficiaries of China's economic rise and have some savings. They are foolish people. Why? Because they only covered cheapness without considering the consequences, not to mention the quality of domestically produced cars. There are not enough parking spaces in most neighborhoods, tourist spots, and cities, and they will receive fines from the government if they are caught by electronic eyes while parking or driving illegally in urban areas. In addition, in order to save money, these fools do not park their cars in paid parking lots, but just park them in non-motorized lanes. These people don't consider that their behavior will be harmful to non-motorized drivers. As we all know, China is not a country with the rule of law, and the traffic police will enforce the law selectively. For example, during holidays, many cars will be parked in non-motorized lanes, sometimes even in two rows. Traffic police usually do not come over to issue tickets at this time, but once the local government is short of money, it will enforce the law on parked cars on certain roads. Due to the government's connivance, car drivers do not follow traffic rules. They park indiscriminately. They turn right without allowing pedestrians or non-motorized vehicles to go first, resulting in many injuries and deaths every year. China has such big and beautiful infrastructures, but lacks a rule of law. This is terrible. What those fools do have led to a huge increase in the death rate of non-motorized drivers. Once there is a traffic accident, the CCP solves the problem with Western laws. For example, if a car hits a person without causing that person's death, the traffic police will issue a certificate of responsibility for the accident and let both parties mediate on their own. The result is that the victim will at most get medical treatment, and it is impossible to get more compensation. And what is more, the victimizer will only pay for the medical expenses but not other expenses. A former colleague told me that she was hit by a car on her way to work, resulting in a fracture of her hand. The traffic police came and tore away her electric bicycle and told them to mediate on their own. And the victimizer, that is the car driver, only gave her medical expenses. She was not compensated for the damage to her electric bicycle and her eyeglasses. The traffic police towed her electric bicycle away and told her to pick it up, charging her a high towing fee, about 100 RMB. Some people may say that you can file a lawsuit, but it should be noted that China is not a country with the rule of law, and the ordinary person doesn't have the funds to support the cost of filing a lawsuit. Or to put it simply, I have lived in China for over 20 years, and if lawsuits were really useful, I would have heard about this sort of thing long ago. Okay, going back to the earlier discussion, if a car driver hits and kills a bicyclist with his car, then the first thing the police do when they come over is to arrest the car driver and then leave. They don't even tell the families of both parties to mediate. As a result, the family of victimizer doesn't know about mediation. Mediation means that the families of both parties can discuss the amount of compensation, and the victimizer can stay out of jail after paying out the money. I once heard a police officer said that an old lady who was tilling a vegetable field on a rural roadside was hit and killed by a passing big truck. As a result, the victimizer compensated the old lady's family only 300,000 RMB. How cheap this is. Regardless of the amount of compensation, a life was lost forever. By making such a law, the Chinese Communist Party is promoting evil, and it says that Western countries are following the same laws. That is why some companies will purchase expensive insurance for their truck drivers so that they can use the money to buy the lives of their victims after an accident. Many intellectuals like discussing national issues, but ignore the ordinary people who live and breathe. Every day we ride our non-motorized vehicles on the road, and one day we may be killed by those road killers. Some people may say that traffic accidents happen in other countries too, so what's the big deal? But traffic accidents in China are due to political reasons. The government is trying to get people to buy cars at all costs, leading to the proliferation of cars, while not practicing the rule of law. China has followed the example of the US and is engaging in the so-called Chinese dream. To millions of ordinary people like me, the Chinese dream means nothing, and I only care about whether my life can be improved. I don't want to ride my bicycle on the road one day and be killed by those road killers. China's rulers are so high and mighty. They rule the country like a child's play and ignore the life of ordinary people. A lot of people will lose their lives because of their stupid policies. That is the cost.